Welcome to Issues. As you know, Issues is a program that deals with the community and events that are taking place in the community, and we try to interview some of those individuals who are making the news. Today we have with us a young attorney. I had the first opportunity of meeting him at a chapel at Bermuda Institute. This gentleman was, in my opinion, outstanding and made a lot of sense to the students of the school. So we are looking at success. We have been looking at success for a few weeks, and we're going to talk to this gentleman and see how he defines success. Share with us your name, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jevon Williams.
Okay, and continue.
I am an attorney at Axel Catlin. I'm legal counsel there and also regional compliance officer.
Well, long term.
Yes.
Long term. Now, at what age did you decide that maybe law is what you wanted to do as an adult?
I was probably a late bloomer in terms of deciding that I wanted to pursue a legal career. I was 18 and I was at university. I went to Dalhousie University there. While I was there, I had an internship at an accountancy firm, and there was an in-house lawyer there. And he worked in the hedge fund industry, but he was a lawyer that sat in the accountancy firm, which was different to me. I didn't know that lawyers could do that. Having a keen interest in business, I thought that he was a really great example of how you can be embedded in the business world but still be a legal person. So,
around 18 years old,
yes.
and from the example of this person where you were doing an internship, became a lawyer. Now, after graduating from high school, where did you go to law school?
I did a business degree first. I went to Dalhousie University.
And you did your business degree?
Yeah, I did a business degree there, and it was during that 4-year period that I discovered my interest in law.
So you finished the 4-year degree?
I finished the 4-year degree and then went to law school.
Oh, well, that is interesting. Very good.
Yes.
Now, in your present position, do you find that you have to use any of the information from your first degree?
Absolutely. Absolutely, every day. It's insurance, reinsurance, which is the area I work in, is quite unique because it requires a lawyer or a person in the legal part of the company to dissect the business of the person or the company rather that's being insured. Mm-hmm. You want to identify the risks that are pertinent to that business and then find a way to draft contracts that speak to those risks.
That leads me to another question. As you know, the track to becoming a lawyer is different in Bermuda and Great Britain as compared to the United States.
Yes.
No, in the United States you need a bachelor's degree, you need a first degree, but you did that. You had a first degree. So let me ask you, in your experience, which track do you think prepares an individual better to be an attorney?
For me personally, I wasn't as mature as I would have liked to have been at 18. So having the 4-year degree first, I think, gave me time to grow. It also gave me time to really think about what I wanted to do as a career. And it became something that was real to me before I actually pursued it. So no one actually put the idea in my head. Mm-hmm. It was via experience over that 4-year the degree that I was able to decide that I wanted to pursue law.
Now, where did you go to school in the UK?
In the UK, I was in London. I went to City Law School of London.
And how long did that program take you?
That was a 2-year degree, which you could get into if you had attained a certain GPA during your first degree. You had to have a first degree in this program as well. And it was quite competitive. You enter into that 2-year degree, you finish that, and then there's what one would probably call graduate school, but it was a legal practice course at the time, which is also 1 year.
Now, listening to you, it seems like you were attaining success pretty early on in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Depends on how you define it, but yes.
Well, how do you define success?
Success to me is quite an interesting topic because I believe that success changes over the course of one's life. I believe that long-term success for me, if you will, would be raising my son Akani, my wife and I, into a life where he walks with God daily, where he has an intimate relationship and connection with him and relies on him in the various parts of his life. If now I was to take a step back, some of the interests I have which spill from that long-term goal, if you will, would be to work with youth and encourage them to see the greatness in themselves while they're young. Wow. And to reach and pull from that as they pursue their own goals.
Wow. Now, in your definition, I noticed that you didn't at least so far, you haven't said anything about law. You haven't said anything about becoming the CEO of your company or anything like that.
Very purposeful.
Wow.
I believe that these things are offshoots of my larger goal of success, but only in so much as I think people are able to connect it to the very source of who God is. So we'll probably get to this in some time, but for me, the things that I accomplish are only as important as they bring me closer to God. So as I pursued law school, as I pursued these things that, I guess for all intents and purposes, were parts of success for me, they were important only in so much as I was able to rely on Christ to attain them.
Yeah, you know, I'm finding it quite interesting. You're the third individual we've had in terms of talking about success. And you're the third individual that brought up about Christ in your life. I don't know if it's something with all lawyers now.
Not by chance.
Now, as a young child, were you brought up going to church? Was Christ an important part of your life?
Yes, absolutely. My mother, Caroline Griffith, raised me in the church. I attended Salvation Army at the time. And I was in choir practice, I was in Sunday school, and God was a very important part of even my life at home. So it wasn't just going to church, it was praying, even in the small instances, like praying before meals, having a discussion, if the day went bad, I didn't get an exam result that I wanted. How does that relate to your relationship with Christ? How does it make you better? How does it make you worse?
So would you think that success may be defined differently for someone who was not brought up with Christ as the center of their life? Would that person probably define success differently?
I think so. They may very well do so. But I think when you define success absent God, and this is obviously my opinion, I'm a Christian man, so I always trace it back to the source. When you define success absent God, I think that these tend to be very hollow things that you attain. So, say for example, if being a successful attorney was the only thing that I wanted to accomplish, and I didn't have any way to connect that journey to my relationship with Christ, then once I attain it, now what? What's next?
Wow.
It becomes a very hollow pursuit. And I think when you connect that to the larger reason that we're here, why are we here? I'm not on this earth to simply be an attorney.
Let me ask you, let's go back and talk about you a little bit in terms of success. At what age did you start to find success, maybe in terms of your grades, in terms of sports? Well, what age did you find that maybe some of the talents that God had given you maybe helped you to excel a little bit above others?
I think that's an odd question, because I think I'm kind of coming into my own in that respect now, believe it or not. I think that there were moments in my academic life where I certainly excelled relative to other students, and that was probably during my first year of law school.
Well, you said first year of law school. How did you do in high school and elementary school?
Not good. If I'm being completely honest, which I'd like to be, I went to Northland Secondary. Yes. At the time, it was a secondary school, high school. Yes. And I failed absolutely everything. Wow. And my mother at the time was completely disappointed, obviously angry, but also steadfast in making sure that I was in an environment that cultivated not just the pursuit of, or rather dedicating one's life to academic excellence, but also nurturing that decision to dedicate your life to Christ. And Bermuda Institute at the time represented that for both of us. And she made that switch for me. Okay.
Well, what happened at Bermuda Institute that maybe kept the same focus that your mother wanted for you?
It was Christ-centered. So it was an environment that, although there was a poignant focus on education, there was also a steadfast commitment that I think, for me anyway, I had to make in terms of dedicating my life to God. I wanted to be a lawyer, but also, what do you want for your life? What do you want what do you want your legacy to be? Why are you here? These are the questions that I started to ask myself once I attended Bermuda Institute. Had my mother not pulled me from Northlands at the time, I don't think I would have made that decision. And that's not to say anything bad about Northlands. I think that it was an environment.
For you, Bermuda Institute.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, in your definition of success, the first thing you mentioned was your son and your family. Now, it seems that family is very important to
Absolutely,
you.
yes.
But as I listen to you, you've mentioned your mother. I haven't heard any father. So let me ask you, as a young man growing up in Bermuda, in terms of achieving success, is it important that there is a mother and father involved, or is the job just as easy in attaining success if it's just a one-parent home?
I think, to turn that on its converse, I think it's more difficult if you have one parent involved, be that mother or father. But what I do strongly believe, and what I'd like to certainly emphasize, is that it isn't absolutely necessary. In most situations, it's better. The ideal situation would be for you to have a loving mother and a loving father that commit themselves to your education and your excellence throughout life. I didn't have that. What I did have, however, was a mother that dedicated herself to me. And I think overarching, the most important thing above all those things is the person's commitment to excellence themselves. So the decision for themselves to be a successful person, as opposed to having both parents.
To what degree does success rely on parents, be it a one or two parent home? Because as I listen, and you're successful, as I listen to you, you're stressing that mother. You've mentioned your mother several times, and in terms of what is success for you, you brought up family. So how important is setting a base for success? How important is it dependent on that home training?
It's of the utmost importance, and I think it's interesting that you use the term base, because the base is the bottom. It's the platform from which you build everything else, and it's vitally important, absolutely necessary. You have to have a parent that creates that structure, that instills those values in you from young, to which you then aspire to. I believe that as children we come into the world naked, just not in reality, but also in a metaphor as well. You don't have the basic tenets of success. Someone has to build that into you. That's the role that your parents play, or parent plays.
Now, you also mentioned in your definition of success, one of the ingredients that you work with young men, or like to work with young people coming up.
Yes.
What are you doing now in terms of that?
I've recently just joined the board of the Coalition of Protection of Children, but prior to that I have a long-standing commitment to Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's a program I really believe in. I am involved in various community pursuits.
What would you say with the gang violence that's taking place in Bermuda, as somebody who is involved with youth and someone who is successful? What are your thoughts about that?
A lot of it has to do with the fact that there are deficiencies in the home. We can talk for days, perhaps years, about where these deficiencies originate from, but there's one fact that there are deficiencies in the home, and I think that if there was more of an emphasis on, like, as I said, I'm a Christian man, I can only connect this back to Christ, but if there was more of an emphasis on God and the pursuit to be to be the best version of yourself, then I think that we would certainly be better for this as a community and as an island.
We're going to take a pause right here, and we'll be right back. We've been talking with Jevon Williams, an attorney in the community, and we've been talking about success. The subject has gotten pretty wider. We've been looking at several things, but we will be right back with Jevon Williams. Welcome back. We're here with Jevon Williams, an attorney in the community, and we've been looking at success. Now, this is the third program we've had on success. It just happens to be the third attorney. One of the things that I've been noticing, there seems to be a common thread so far with each three individuals. all of them have mentioned God in terms of importance to their success. They've mentioned family and the home in terms of being important to success. So these are two things. If you have had the opportunity to watch the two previous programs, you will notice that there is a common thread, and none of these individuals have had the opportunity of speaking with one another and sitting down and say, what is success to you? These are things that that's part of their life, and it comes up as you talk about success. Now, we're going to get back to Mr. Williams here. Let me ask this question. We were talking about the gang violence we're having, and we're talking, you mentioned God and the church. So let me ask this very poignant question. Is the church failing at what they do?
Wow. I think that when I look at this problem, particularly as it pertains to Bermuda, I tend not to point fingers, but what I tend to do is look at how the various stakeholders, be that church, parents, schools, teachers, the wider community, in the neighborhood even, and I look at the culpability and the responsibility that we all have to the youth and what role we play in that. And I would dare to say that I think various pieces of that family, if you will, that community, have perhaps dropped the ball. I think we've all done something that has, or rather not done something that I think has added to this equation.
Wow.
And it's, I don't want to belabor the point, but it's interesting to note, because when I have conversations with people, particularly the elders, one of the things that they always do is reflect on how Bermuda used to be.
Yes.
Some of the things that they talk about, even unlocking your door, leaving your door unlocked at night.
Listen, I could go downtown. I would leave the key in my car, leave the window down, no problem.
This is it.
Back then, I remember my mother-in-law would leave the insurance money in the kitchen, the door unlocked. Yep. The gentleman would come in, leave the receipt, and go, I'd be no problem at all. But things surely have changed. Now, and if I'm listening to you, to a degree, the family plays a role in that. The church, you name several different factors. Even school, the education,
absolutely,
has played a role in that. But let's get back to you a little bit, because I want individuals to know, what road did you take to be successful, and you might be a motivating factor to some young person listening. Now, when you graduated from law school and came back to Bermuda, did you go right into the present position that you have?
No, it's interesting. I don't tell the story often, but it's quite for me, it really brings my story to life and makes it palatable, I think, for most people when I talk about this. And I actually came back, I returned from university, and I had to wait almost 2 months for my grades. Now, at the time, I did not want to, I was finished law school, I'd come back, I'm just waiting for results at this time. I didn't want to spend 2 months sitting around on my hands, so my mother said, what are you going to do? You're not going to be at home. So you need to get out and do something. So I said, okay, well, who are the large companies on the island that I'd like to work for? I put together an email basically saying that I'm returning from school, I'm awaiting results, and I'd like to come and intern at your company for the period of a month. And I sent that out to various companies. One of the ones that came back first was Axel Insurance, now Axel Catlin. And I sent that to the general counsel of all of these companies. And Axel Catlin's general counsel at the time was Kim Wilkerson. She invited me in to come and have a discussion with her. I had that discussion. That discussion led to an internship. Unpaid, by the way, and that and that internship then led to this position that I have now. But it was during that 2-month period that I had to prove myself, if you will. But what the company perhaps didn't know, and what even Ms. Wilkerson probably didn't know, is that I was using that opportunity to, 1, get insight into the industry, 2, make connections, and then 3, decide whether or not this is what I really wanted. So that was payment enough for me, because I would have clarity at the end of the process. Yeah.
Now, at Bermuda Institute, I heard you tell something about failure.
Yes.
And from your perspective, it seemed that failure can be an important ingredient that can lead to success. Share your concept.
I'll just dress back a second, because 1, I do agree with you. Failure is, I believe, absolutely essential to success, actually. You've heard me say this
Yes,
before.
yeah, and just listen, when he said that at Bermuda Institute, I said, failure leading to success, important ingredient, how can that be? But continue.
Failure is one of those things, and it all comes back to how we look at life and how we perceive situations that happen. Yeah. I believe that life is 90% what happens to you and 10% how you choose to address it or perceive it. Failure for me ended up leading to success. And I think that one of the things I wanted to just say before I get into it is that success should be something that is huge. Your goals, the thing that you've put on or set on high as success, should always far exceed your current capacity to attain it. And if it doesn't, then you need to have another look at what you've defined as success.
Yeah, you're saying success should far exceed your capacity to attain it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Always. If it isn't, then why is it a goal? Why is it success? Why is it something to be chased and fought for and you're down in the mud? What are you doing that for? If it isn't something that is far bigger than you. Mm-hmm. That's when I think about success in that way, it's hard to not imagine failure as an integral or necessary part in that process.
Now, you say necessary. I don't know how many people watching would agree that failure is necessary to succeed, but...
Yes. So well, if you think about it in this way, it has to be. So for me, my personal story is that I talked about the 2-month period that I had to wait to get my exam results. What I didn't say is that I had failed 3 exams and I was awaiting my results in those 3 exams. That 2-month process, if you step back 1 second, is actually a 3-year process where I was failing, passing. I didn't just go to law school, pass everything, come back, fall into a cushy job. There was a process where I had to lean on God to get me through that. And this lofty idea of success, if you will, that I had at the time was great in terms of that's what I want to be, but what was more important for me at the time was the journey. Yeah. And I think failing helped me, or rather made it clear to me that I had to depend on God to get through this process. That rubric I use even today in my life.
Wow, the concept that Jevon Williams is talking about in terms of failure is a concept probably that some of you have really never thought of in terms of success. But I'm sure as some of you individuals look at this and make that journey, and he said that leading to success is kind of a process, and I think if many of you look back into what you've achieved, you've seen that maybe failure kind of catapulted you to success. Now, as you sit and work with young people, and maybe those young people who might be failing in school, not having a good parental life at home, what information, how can you motivate them? How do you motivate them?
One of the things that I really want to emphasize and make clear is that success is for everyone. Success is for everyone. There are a multitude of small things that have to happen to perfection for you to be in existence. Mm-hmm. And I would dare to challenge anyone that is alive. If you're alive, then don't just live, but thrive. And I think that when you make a decision for success, that's the most important thing, making the decision for success. When you decide, which is the first thing, then I think everything else will flow. But you have to first, it all starts with a decision. Success is a journey. I think that journey comes from a bunch of small decisions. Yeah. Those bunch of decisions starts with the first decision that you make to be successful.
Let me ask, as you look again at gang violence and some of the delinquency in young people that we're seeing, and I know you've mentioned several aspects of the community that plays into that, but where does one start? Folks watching this, where does one start in terms of saying, we need to change this gang violence? Where does it start? I mean, how do you make a beginning? Mm-hmm. How do you, as an individual, one person, how do you start to make that change?
I guess this is why working with young people is so important to me, because I When I was, if you will, wayward, I was in a place where I didn't have the views that I have now. I had to learn that from someone. There were other people in my life in addition to my mother. I had uncles, I had older cousins. I had even people that I didn't know personally, but I aspired to be like in the community. And I wanted to emulate what they were doing because I viewed them as successful. And I think it's important for young people to see people that look like that as they're coming along. So I think, first of all, like I said, it has to start with a decision. But I think in addition to that, how do you define success? Where do you want to be? And the current road that you're on, does it get you to that place? Does it get you to that place?
Yeah. So success, if I'm listening to you correctly, success begins with the individual.
Absolutely. Successful mind first.
Yeah. Now, in this discussion, we haven't talked about money, haven't talked about homes, haven't talked about cars in terms of success. No. Do you have anything against those?
I don't, but what I want to do is change the paradigm. I want to change the way people view success, because I think that this is a sickness in society. I believe that, like I said, these are hollow things.
You can say that because you are successful.
I am. Don't get me wrong. I like money. I don't love it, but I don't mind. It's great to have money. Yeah. It's great to want a home. It's great to want a fancy car. Yeah. But we have to be careful that these things don't consume us, and even more importantly, they don't define who we are. Yeah. So it's very purposeful. It's very important that I don't stick on those things when I have these types of conversations, particularly to people who are still defining success for themselves.
So if I'm understanding you, while nothing is wrong with cars, home, and money, that shouldn't be the litmus test of success.
Absolutely not.
If I'm going back to the way you started this conversation, success begins with the home or with God first, and then the home. Are you involved in your church presently, other than just attending?
Yeah. I am not as involved as I'd like to be. And I have to be honest about that. My wife and I have very busy lives. Yeah. And in the church, you have to be ready to commit yourselves, not just to God, but to the people that are in the church. If you're gonna perform a function within that structure, and if you aren't ready in terms of the time and the commitment, then I don't think you should do it. And if I'm being transparent, my wife and I are very busy. We're not at the place where we have decided to devote that time to it. Until we are, we're not going to get into it loosely.
Okay, we have about a minute left. Now, you have a young son?
I do, yes.
Yeah. What are some of the ingredients that you and your wife are presently instilling in your son that, how old is he?
He's only 2.
Okay, he's only 2. That when he reaches the age where he can think and make decisions, he'll make a decision for success, because we said the individual has to define and want success. So what is it that you're doing and your wife doing that will instill within him to be able to choose success?
Well, one of the things we're very conscious of is that we pray very regularly in front of him. We involve him in the daily process that we have in terms of communication and the relationship that we have with God. We teach him, even now at 2, manners. And it's not just about saying please and thank you, but it's about structure. We're creating an environment where it's fun to learn. It's fun to dream. It's fun to want things that are bigger than yourself. It's fun to want to be involved. And this starts very small by having him be a part of our conversations and the things that we do daily.
Thank you so much. We're out of time. We've been talking with Jevon Williams, a gentleman that you can see is truly motivated, and as I listen to him, the basis of his success has been God, and never once, I brought the question up, but never once did he define success as having money, having a big home, having a fancy car. He said nothing's wrong with that, but the base has got to be God, and from that base you need a family that will encourage you and motivate you towards success. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.